Hi, Bookends! Welcome to a 10-minute book review. I'm 10. Today's book review is going to be on Heal Together Without Hurting Each Other by Derrick Jaxn. Jumping right on in, we like to start every book review with a star point, as in out of 10 stars, how many stars this particular book garner, and also a rating, as in if this was a movie or a TV show, what would it be rated? Now, because this isn't the type of book that we would normally read, and so it isn't the type of book that we would normally review, we had to dig a little deeper as to how we were going to review it. So, first of all, Tu didn't read this one because it is a book on marriage, and she's not married, so she didn't read it. And so, my rating on it is based on clarity of information, because it is supposed to be a self-help book. So clarity of information, how easy was it for me to understand what was being conveyed to me. Also relatability, were the words and the word pairings and the things that were said easily relatable to me. Like, not only could I understand it, but would I care? Would I feel like I'm being spoken to or spoken at? And finally, implementation. How easy is it to put what it is he wrote in his book into actual everyday practice? So based on those three categories, I rated this book a 10 out of 10. Because it is easy to implement. It is relatable, and pardon me, it's easy to understand. Now, in the way of a TV show or a movie, this would never be a TV show or a movie because it's a self-help book. So it's not a story, it's just a self-help book. So it's kind of hard to say what this would be rated, only because there's nothing in the book that would scandalize a teenager. I definitely wouldn't rate it PG, but there's nothing in it that would scandalize a teenager. So if a 13-year-old picked this up, they wouldn't become scandalized by it. But it's also not the type of book that a 13-year-old or a 16-year-old would pick up, because it is very clearly about committed relationships and marriage or partnerships that go past the point of infatuation, past that demarcation of this is fun into this is for life. So although a teenager could very well read this book and not be scandalized by it, I don't believe that it is a type of book that a teenager, first of all, it's not the type of book that I would recommend to a teenager. And secondly, I don't think it's the type of book that a teenager would pick up. So technically it is a PG-13, but I wouldn't advise any parents to go run out and get this book for their kids. So jumping right on in, because this isn't a story, the review format has to be a little bit different. So instead of giving you bullet points as to what happens, instead I'm just going to give you bullet points as in the lessons that are being taught in the book. So first of all, what is it you have to heal from? What are we healing from? What is he showing us how to heal from in this book? So I highlighted a few things. I read this on both of my Kindles. So this one too. So when I was out and about, reading on this one. When I was home, reading on this one. So let me just pull up some things that are highlighted. Okay, so what this book is trying to show people how to heal from is anything that compromises your ability to fully experience or contribute to a loving relationship, even a loving relationship with yourself. So past traumas, whether it came from being in a past relationship or past relationships with people who did not treat you fairly or treat you poorly, or even if it was things that you did to yourself that ended up causing you to feel poorly about yourself. Those are all things that you need to heal from before you're able to enter into a relationship with anyone or repair a relationship. So I found that to be an interesting definition of what it is someone would need to heal from. That was interesting. It was clear, but it was interesting. Some other things that he mentioned. Infidelity-related betrayals include Loving a partner who watches pornography, gawks at other women or men online, carries on inappropriate conversations with the opposite sex, continues friendships with former flames, has wandering eyes, flirts with those of the opposite sex, or allows those of the opposite sex to disrespect the relationship in any way. So, infidelity isn't just classified as someone having sex with another person. It's not the basis, the first base, second base, it's not all that. It's different things. And I found it interesting that he brought out pornography as a form of infidelity. Because I personally believe that pornography is a form of infidelity too. Because what's the point of watching porn if you're not going to be imagining that you're a part of it? I'm not like a porn person. I don't like watch that for obvious reasons. But I personally would feel like if I was with someone who watched that, like, what are you getting from it? Because obviously the women don't look like me. I would say most don't. I pretty sure it's a wide variety, but I'm going to say I'm 85% sure the women don't look like me. And it's wanting someone else or wanting something else that probably isn't going to happen. Because let's be honest, porn is like kabuki sex. It's like, it's not real. Like, those people are actors, they're acrobats, like they're doing it all that regular people can't do and don't have the stamina for, don't have the flexibility for, and like, oof. So yeah, I consider watching porn to be infidelity too. Like, no, you want to see somebody naked? Okay, I'm available. You don't need to watch porn. But what I thought was interesting that he added in as something that would be considered infidelity is inappropriate friendships, which I thought was very interesting, because a lot of people are like, well, I used to date this person before I met you and now we're friends, and so, you know, you shouldn't have a problem with that. And although I never considered it cheating, I did consider it inappropriate. Like, once you are in a serious relationship with another person, if you have a friendship with an ex, that friendship should kind of be demoted to an acquaintance out of respect. If you're in a serious relationship, like serious relationship. And so they shouldn't be hugging on you, touching on you. Hey, remember when we used to? No. He forgot. So, yeah, and then also letting someone disrespect your relationship. So if it's, let's say, a woman who, or a man who likes the person you're with, and the person you're with allows that person to disrespect your relationship. Oh, like, that boy, that ain't gonna last. Girl, whatever. You gonna be running back. Like, people who are like that. That is a form of infidelity, because it's... So a relationship is built on trust. And if you cannot trust someone to not only protect you, but protect the relationship that the two of you are in, then they are technically being unfaithful to that relationship. So I thought that was very interesting. And it's not like a hard thing to do. It's not like he's saying, like, you must fight every person who says something about your relationship. No, he's definitely not saying that. But what he was making clear was that if the person allows someone to disrespect their relationship, so if the person is fully aware that someone is disrespecting, someone of the opposite sex is disrespecting, or same sex, whatever it is disrespecting the sanctity of that relationship by talking against it or anything like that, then that person, the man of the relationship, or whoever the person is in the relationship, should be the one to say no, to put that other person in their place, or to excavate them from their lives. I would probably suggest that put them in the place first, and if they continue to behave in that way, then excavate them from their lives. Also, interesting fact, the beginning of this book, like the forward, not even the forward, like the beginning of this book brings out that this book is not for people who are in abusive relationships. This is not a book that tells you to stay with someone who is beating you or who has you in a position where you're afraid that they may become volatile or they have been volatile before, and so you are afraid for your life. It does make it clear that if you're in a position where you are afraid for your life, you need to call 911. You need to take yourself out of that relationship and be safe. So this is not romancing abuse. It's not saying that you need to stay with an abuser. It's definitely not saying that. Also, something else in the book, there's a long list of things that you may need to heal from. So just like a few of them. You may need to heal if you involuntarily reject the loving affection of your partner despite a conscientious, it's after work, it's late at night, it's about to be morning, I can't read. You involuntarily reject the loving affection of your partner despite a conscious effort, I should say, to receive it. So knowing that someone loves you, knowing that someone has no intent upon hurting you, knowing that they have never hurt you, but still rejecting the love they're providing to you. And by rejecting, it's not like, okay, well, this is a guy I don't like, so I don't want to be with him. Not like that. But someone that you're actually with and that is actually showing you kindness and affection, and you're saying, I can't accept this because I know that the other shoe's going to drop and something bad's going to happen. This one's interesting. Despite wanting to be loved, being alone feels more comfortable than opening up to someone new or the person you are currently with in your life. So I can understand not opening up to having someone new in your life, but it's interesting to think that people could feel lonely in their relationship on purpose, because it's easier to feel lonely in the relationship and hurt than to open up in the relationship and possibly hurt worse. So I thought that was very interesting. Let's go into the actual things that he says will help. So let me just scroll past. I did a lot of highlighting in this book. Okay. So one more thing about this. He says that this book is really for intramarital healing. So it's basically made for people who are in either married or are in a deeply committed relationship. When I say deeply committed, I don't mean like 1 or 2 years in. I mean like 8 or more years in, like deeply committed. Like both your names are on the bills. You may have a kid or two. People call you Mr. and Mrs. or whatever, whether they know if you're married or not. Like deeply committed relationships. So yeah, I had never heard of intramarriage healing before. Intramarriage, I'd never heard of the word before to begin with, but that was interesting. Also, to kind of give a timeline for this book, he said that shortly before he started writing the book, there was the incident with the preacher who it was found out that he cheated on his wife, and he said an interesting statement that the preacher made was that his wife birthed him in a way, and that she went through more pains birthing him into the man that he is now than she did birthing their children. And he was proud of that, and she was proud of it too. And I remember hearing that and thinking, nah, bruh. Like, nah, I'm not birthing no man. I'm not raising no man. Like, if your mother couldn't do it, why am I gonna do it? But I'm pretty sure it's because I'm from a different generation who gives no whatevers about it. Like, I'm not fitting to raise no man. Like, the only man I'm fitting to raise is the baby I gave birth to. I'm fitting to raise that boy into a man. But I'm not fitting to raise no grown man into no man. I'm not fitting to birth no man. So, but this idea, and he even brings out in the book too, the idea of the ride or die chick, the woman who is held to esteem because she stood by a man who was running the streets, treating her wrong, just doing all of this wrongness, but she stood by him until he became a better man, and so she's a good woman. No, then I'm a bad woman, because I ain't standing by nobody who's not standing by me. Nobody who's not standing by me. So I have never liked that. I wasn't raised to be that stand by your man type of person where like, yeah, let him treat you like dirt. Like, and mind you, my father would say this too. Like, no, you don't stand by no man who treats you like dirt. And he's a guy himself. Like, no. 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 So, yeah, no, I'm not fitting to raise no man. And so he was bringing out how that is a mindset that some men have, that they want a woman who's going to put up with their mess until they get better. And meanwhile, this woman who's working to elevate this man into a better person is bringing herself down, is stressing herself out, is making herself sick, is giving herself things that she's going to need to heal from later that this man is never going to have the adequate ability to be able to help her heal from. So basically it's like using yourself as a stepping stool for another person, and every time they step higher, they break a little more of your spine. They break another rib. They impact something else until finally they're up at the upper echelon. They're like, yay, it's so pretty up here, so pretty. But you're so broken and bent that you can't see how pretty it is. You can't enjoy how pretty it is because you're broken up. And guess what's going to happen? Once you pass away or just aren't good enough anymore, they're going to get somebody else. And that other person is going to benefit from you helping that person get up. So, yeah. Don't do that. Don't do that. I don't want to give away everything. I think there's just one more thing I want to mention about the book. He does give some interesting things on, some interesting tips on how to heal, such as don't be afraid of therapy, like to have a therapist, I should say, or to go into therapy. There is absolutely no shame in it. And he says that, you know, in order to heal in a relationship, you need a trained professional, God, and a willingness to heal. Because if you don't have all three, like if you're a professional but no one to hold you accountable, then your relationship could fall apart. If you're praying that your relationship works out but you're doing nothing to help it to work out, then nothing's going to happen. It's like praying that a plant grows but you never water it. It's not going to grow. God isn't going to make a miracle for your plant to grow if you never water it, because you're showing him you don't really want it to grow. And then finally, that willingness to fix the issue, because if you're just going through the motions but you're not really trying to fix anything, like if you're just going through it because you feel like you should, because society at large says that you should, because your family says that you should, because you just think that that's probably the right thing to do, then it's not worth it. It's not where your heart's not gonna be in it, and so there's not gonna actually be any healing. It's just gonna be all superficial. One thing I thought was very interesting, there is a chapter on sex. And although it's not explicit in any way, it's not a how-to chapter or anything like that, but I just want to read the paragraph, just one paragraph from that. Forget everything you've been told by previous sexual partners. Ignore the things you've learned from pornography. Scrap what your uncle and older male cousins told you when you were an adolescent. It's time to relearn sex, especially as it relates to meeting your wife's sexual needs. You may even need to help her learn what her needs are for herself. And I thought that was beautiful. I really do think that's beautiful, because a lot of men learn that sex means aggression. Sex means, and even women learn that, you know, in order for sex to be good, there has to be some sort of aggression in it. But if someone is suffering from perhaps a past relationship where sex was used either as a weapon or a tool against them, aggression may not be what's needed. One example of that is of a woman who, this is in the book, but this is someone that I know. She was in a and it's not like a family member or anything like that, but she was in a relationship with a guy who was very like abusive towards her, very like mean, very physically abusive, emotionally abusive, but he would use sex as a way of apologizing. he would, after he had hurt her in whatever way that he had hurt her, he would use sex as a way to placate her, as a way to say, like, I love you, and I'm gentle with you when it comes to this, and I make you feel good when it comes to this. And so when she was finally out of the relationship with him, she was left with a very warped sense of sex. She enjoyed sex, but she was also in a mental position where she felt like there had to be a storm happening before sex could happen. And that storm had to hurt her in some way. She didn't want to be hurt. She didn't want to feel pain. She didn't want to feel bad. But she was in a mental position where she felt like she had to feel bad. Like, this is how things are supposed to work, or it's not working right. And eventually she did end up getting into a relationship where the man was able to help her unlearn that, because he wasn't willing to treat her in that way. Because no one should treat anyone horribly. But what Derrick Jaxn was more so talking about was, like, if someone's like, yeah, you need to grab her by the hair and do this and do that, that might not be what your wife wants. Like, don't go out saying, like, okay, well, yeah, all women like when dudes do this. All women. No, find out what's specific to the woman that you're with. Specific to the person that you're with. What do they specifically want? And if they don't know, then maybe you should, not even maybe, then you need to talk to them and find out and explore with that particular person. Don't say, oh, my ex used to like this, or I learned this in a previous relationship, or why don't you like this? Every girl I've ever been with like this. Like, no, that's not cool. That's not cool. What's better is to actually ask the person what it is they like, or try to guide them to what it is they like. Ask, do they want this to happen or that to happen? And I think that's really good. I really do. I really think that is a beautiful message to tell men. Don't just assume that. So there's always this notion of a woman pleasing her man, right? Just in whatever, not just sexually, but just in life in general. Like, you have to make sure your man's happy. You have to make sure your man's comfortable. You have to make sure that your man is pleased, because he's the one who takes care of everything. But in this day and age, men aren't the ones who take care of everything. Now everything is split 50-50, but even more so sometimes not even 50-50. Sometimes it's more so on the woman. But the mindset is still the same thing. You have to please your man. And so men aren't made to be held accountable for making their women feel good. And that's not just in a sexual way, that's in an overall emotional way that can lead into a sexual way. So that was brought out in the book as well, and I thought that was very interesting. It was very poignant, and it was written in a way that holds men accountable, but they're also able to read it without feeling ashamed. Because it's not saying, you dirty dog, you nasty this. It's not saying that, but it is saying, bruh, you know you're wrong for that, right? So you need to do this to fix it. So it's very conversational. It is written towards men, although I don't know if men would pick it up per se. But I would advise for dudes to pick it up and read it. Also, it's good for women to read it too, because it's kind of an insight into a man's mind. Now, it was a bit of a scandal with Derrick Jaxn. It was found out recently that he cheated on his wife with several different women. I don't know if he was married at the time that the cheatings were taking place, but they've been together for about 9 years and married for 4 years, and they have kids. So I believe they're little people, they're little kids. So some people are saying, okay, well, because he cheated on his wife, his advice should be null and void. Here's my thoughts on that. The book is good. And he said he wrote this book based on his experience with healing from, like, after he had already, so it's not like his wife just found out that he cheated. Like, he cheated a while ago. He came clean to his wife. They went to counseling. She left him for a little bit. They went to counseling, and they became religious. And so he said he stopped all that. And so this book is based on his journey to the place where he and his wife are now. So I'm of the belief that if the information is true and good, why not use it? You know what I mean? So some people are trying to say, like, oh, he cheated on his wife, so why should we listen? But this book is basically about healing from hurting someone. And it's directed towards men who have hurt someone and also women who are hurting. So he is a man who has hurt someone, and his wife is someone who was hurting. So he would have the perspective needed to be able to write this book in an honest way. So, yeah, I'm not of the belief that because he cheated on his wife, he's not able to provide a book with information that is useful to people who are married. Now, with that said, would my husband read this? I don't know. I really don't know. But he hasn't really done anything for me to heal from, so I'm not really into self-help books, but I would honestly say that if you are in a relationship and first of all, I don't believe in sticking with someone who cheats on you. That's just me personally. That is a personal thing. That is not an avocation thing. If you feel like you want to stay with someone who cheated on you, more power to you. That's just something for me. So I wouldn't want to heal from it because we wouldn't be together. But if you are someone who was cheated on and you feel like your relationship is still viable and that this person is still a viable option for you to remain with for whatever reason, then this is a good book to pick up. If you just want to know some relationship information, it's also a good book to pick up. Or if you just like self-help books based on relationships, it's a good book to pick up. I definitely would not avoid it based upon him cheating before. I definitely wouldn't avoid it because of that, because the information is sound and it is useful and it is good. It's really good. I really did enjoy this book. And I don't like self-help books, but I really did enjoy this book. And this is not sponsored. We didn't get it for free for the purpose of review. I went out and bought it on Kindle. It's a really good book. Thank you so much for watching. If you like what you see, please like and subscribe. Bye, Bookends.